to start talking about is the awareness aspect of the game. So basically, when I spawn into a jet at the start of the game, or even after I'm dead, spawn into the jet and I will immediately fly to the edge of the map. The reason I'm doing that is because I want to scan the area. I want to be aware of the positions of other threats, such as the other jets, helicopters, and the MAA, because they're important threats for you. So therefore it's good to know exactly where they are on the map, locate them. And so what you want to do is that you want to fly to the edge of the map, use your free look, use your minimap and everything else that you've got, and locate them. If it's not the start of the match, and say for instance you've been flying and you've died and you're waiting to spawn back in the jet, what you can do is that you can watch the map and you can keep an eye on the jets, while you're waiting to spawn in, and you can also keep your eye on the MAA. So that at least then when you spawn in straight away, you're going to know roughly what area the threats are going to be in. So I'll fly to the edge of the map, prioritise your targets. Well, the MAA you can kind of avoid, so that isn't the main priority, but it is a priority that you don't get too close to it. So, you only be looking at the other jets. Now, I mainly fly in the attack jets, so hopefully, if I've got a good stealth pilot flying alongside me, hopefully he will be clued up, and it's his main job to be taking out the other jets, along with help from the attack jet, of course. But it's his main priority. The stealth jet's main priority is taking out the other jets. So I will look to see where the other jets are. Hopefully, if we can communicate with each other, that's great. I will see whether he's clued up and see whether he's going for the other jets, and I will help him out as well. If I see that he's a competent pilot and he's good in the stealth jet and he can deal with the other jets, then I tend not to take as much notice of him, so that then I can then take more notice of the ground targets like the tanks and things like that, because after all, the attack jet is really the bomber jet out the two, and that is your main priority, is to be attacking the ground targets, basically, boats, tanks, things like that. So you got your basic functions for spotting targets. Once you're flying around, use your free look. Very important. You'll see me using it all the time because you get a wider view of the battlefield. So I use my free look and I'll try and spot targets. Now you can't spam the spot button like you could in Battlefield 3, but what you can do is you can look for tracer fire from the tanks, and that will give you a very good indication of where enemy tanks are. So even though you might not be able to spam the spot button, not all the tanks will light up or whatever else, you can, if you look, you can see the tank shells being fired, and so that is a good tip to use when you're flying high and you're struggling to see the targets on the ground. Use your free look for the trace rounds, and then identify them that way. They are really easy to see. When you start taking real notice of it, you'll find it very helpful. So now I'm going to be moving on to teamwork, and like I said, you've got to have some sort of teamwork with the other jet pilot. You haven't necessarily got to be talking to each other. It's good if you can communicate, but you do need to both know your own roles. So therefore, if you're in the stealth jet, you need to be taking care of the other two jets. They're your main priorities, and you need to be doing that, basically. So if you're going to stealth jet, don't always get yourself guided missiles to try and take out the ground vehicles. That's what the bomber jet's for. You're supposed to be protecting that jet, from other jets and air vehicles. Therefore, equip your heat seekers or wherever else you want to equip, and concentrate mainly on the air vehicles. When there's a breakdown in that type of teamwork, then you'll find yourself getting quickly overcome, especially if the other team has two decent jet pilots. So stick to your own roles, basically. So therefore, when I'm in the attack jets, I always have the Hydra rockets enabled, because that is, what I want to be doing. I want to be mainly attacking ground targets. But also, like I say, you have to have teamwork. So you can't just completely forget about the other jets. You can't completely forget about the pilot on your team. You've always got to be keeping a lookout, making sure that he's okay, he's dealing with the other jets. If he's got, if he's chasing one and he's got one on his tail, then you need to go and help him out. Work together, that's what I would say. Also, when it comes to teamwork, I'm going to talk about the MAA now, the mobile anti-air, because it can be very useful to you, obviously, but it can also help you out if you're in difficulty. If you have somebody behind you, another jet behind you, and you're having difficulty losing them, the best thing to do, I find, is to fly towards where your MAA is. Hopefully then the MAA hasn't got bloody ground missiles equipped and is doing his job as the anti-air and is looking out, and hopefully then you fly towards your MAA, he'll help you out and hopefully take her out for you. Having said that, you've also got to be aware that their pilot isn't glued on, and so when you're in a dogfight and you're chasing the pilot, if you see him going towards where their MAA normally camps, then you have to be aware that he might be doing that to you. So therefore, sometimes you have to break off, especially when you don't know exactly where their MAA is. So use your head, think about what you're doing, and try and use teamwork to your advantage. You can always write in the chat, if I want to say something, I'll fly high, out of danger's arm's way, and I'll write in the chat. Hopefully that will help you out. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to talk about is using countermeasures. I always use the ECM. It's the best thing that you can have. It's better than flares, obviously. The ECM lasts for like 7 seconds. It takes, I think, about 25 seconds now. It used to take 30 seconds, but I think it takes about 25 seconds now to reload. But it's more than enough, because you want to be doing is strafing runs over targets, and then you need to give yourself a little bit of time for your ECM to charge back up and then do another strafe run over. So therefore, as a jet pilot, you do have to be patient as well. You can't be just flying over and over and over the map, regardless of whether you have any ECM countermeasures available. If you're flying over the map, over the flags, and you've got no countermeasure available, then you're kind of looking to be shut down. So be patient. Once you've done a strafe run over, depending on the situation, wait for your ECM to charge back up again, and then do another strafe run over. Sometimes you can get away with doing 2 strafe runs to take out a target without having to wait for your ECM to recharge. But you just have to read the situation, depending on whether you know that people have got stingers out or whatever else. So yeah, so let's use in countermeasures. A thing is to do also, when you do get locked on, when you do release your countermeasure, you want to be flying high and to the edge of the map. That'll give you time to get some distance between you and the missile, especially if you're waiting for your ECM to recharge and you've only got a few seconds left and you hear the beep bleeping sound. Fly high, so hopefully before the missile's reached you, you can let off your ECM, it's charged up, let it off, and you're fine. Just one thing about the MAAs is that the active radar missiles do not have any warnings at all. The only time you'll know that you've been hit by them is when you have been hit by them, basically. So what they can do is that they can knock you into the ground. So I try not to fly too close to the ground, because I don't have stability enabled, because I would rather have stealth anyway, to give me that little bit of extra time to get the ECM off. But I find you don't need the stability enabled as long as you don't fly too close to the ground. You'll be fine anyway, it'll just knock you off balance. If you do fly by the MAA, you need to be flying quite a bit high off the ground, because if they do let the missiles on, you don't want to be crashing into the ground, do you? Goes without saying. So yes, that brings me on to the MAA. When do you attack it? Do you attack it? Well, me personally, I'll try and avoid it as much as possible. If I see that the MAA is engaged in fights with the other ground troops, then I'll then give it to him and try and take it out. But for the most part, I try and avoid it, because if you have got somebody in there who is a bit clued up and using it, for his purpose of anti-air, then really you shouldn't be any competition to him at all. And I haven't got a problem with that, because that is what the MAA is for, mobile anti-air. It should have no competition against the other jets. A jet should not be able to get close to it without it being ripped apart, because otherwise it'd be useless anti-air else, wouldn't it? So therefore, yeah, try and keep away from it. You will see me take it out. You'll see me take mobile AA out a few times in my videos, but it's only because I've sussed out who's driving it. I've sussed out the other team, and I thought, well, if they have got a competent guy in there who's always spawning in there, then I'll avoid it. But a lot of times, let's face it, you got noobs in there, and they'd sooner have bloody ground missiles enabled rather than actually having the anti-air missiles enabled, and they're just basically wasting the vehicle. So, in them situations, then I've got no problem in trying to take it out, you know what I mean? But you do have to be careful, because still the minigun can rip you apart. But when you look at the map and you see the symbol of the mobile anti-air, you can see which way the turret's pointing and which way he's pointing. So it's always good to come from behind, but try and attack it from as high as possible. So you're swooping down from above directly, because I believe that they can only have a certain incline on the gun. So if you are going to attack it, try and get as high as possible, and try and attack it vertically down if you can. Okay, so going on to my next point is going to be dogfighting. Alright, and it's a whole new video basically, but I'm not really one for doing technical dogfighting skills anyway. I don't really do the well-known dogfighting evasive movements or anything like that. I kind of just like do my own kind of movements, so it's not really my forte, but I can kind of get away with it with average jet pilots, and with the majority jet pilots. I'm not brilliant myself. I think if you follow the tips I'm just giving you, then you can be quite successful in the jets in Battlefield. But yeah, basically I kind of like try and do manoeuvres. So if I've got a jet on my tail, I will always loop down towards the ground and back towards the jet that's following me, and then I will then try and loop around and try and get behind him, and I will try and do continuous loops in kind of like a scissor movement, but I don't really do a scissor movement, but I try and do something like that, so you're not just looping directly in a line. You're moving it round in a ball kind of thing to try and basically get them confused. Loose your ECM off, hopefully come off the mini-map and off air radar, and just try and do loops until you kind of get behind them, or that you can fly away. Because if you've got a stealth jet behind you, the stealth jets turn really, really tight, and by rights you shouldn't be able to get away from it if you're in the attack jet. You really shouldn't, because you really don't need to know too many technical things, or even to know the braking speed and everything like this, and keep it constant whilst you're in the stealth jet, in order to be successful and to be able to stay behind the attack jet. It's just that the way that they're designed and the way that they are in Battlefield 4, and so it's basically just trying to get them confused and trying to lose them that way. And once they're out of sight, once they're not directly behind me, if anything, I will try and fly away. If I'm having trouble trying to get behind them, I will try and loose off my ECM, come off the air radar, and I will try and fly away, and then try and fly towards my own MAA or towards my own stealth jet. to let him know, right, look, I'm in trouble, give me some help, and hopefully then you can survive that way. And so yeah, always try and fly, loop down, try and fly towards where they're coming. If you're going to keep flying straight, you know you're going to end up dying anyway. So yeah, try and loop down, fly towards them. And then basically my final tip that I'm going to give for this video is patience. When you're flying jets in Battlefield 4, you gotta have patience. You know, like I say, you need the patience to let your flares or let your ECM reload, let your missiles reload. Patience in once you've shot down, say for instance you've shot down the enemy aircraft, do a couple of strafe runs. You know that the jet's going to respawn in, you know, a few minutes time or however long it is, and so then keep an eye out for the jet respawning. Have the patience to not be too quick to be killing every second of the game. Sometimes it's about just basically flying around the edge of the map, waiting to spot the targets, waiting for the targets to appear, or waiting for your ECM to reload, things like that. So try and be a bit more patient when you're flying the jets. Pick your targets, be selective, and try and take them out. And always, like I say, always keep your eye on where the MA is. On most maps, the MAAs always camp relatively in the same spots. So, you know, that'll give you an idea of where they are. But you always want to try and locate at least the area where they're in. And if possible, stay away from that area. And don't get drawn into it. So like I say, if you're fighting against me in a jet, I will draw you into that area where my MAA is. And I'll purposely do that. So, you know, be smart, think about it. And that's it, like. So anyway, it's a beautiful day outside, so I'm going to leave the video now. Hope you enjoyed the gameplay. Hope you enjoyed the tips. Have a wonderful weekend, and bye-bye.
Hey, look alive. Just lost objective Bravo. 了敌军坦克。 strong and you can